2024 Macau Grand Prix, the 71st running of this historic event, is set to get underway with the qualifying race. New for this year is the FR chassis, replacing Formula 3, and it has given us a fantastic entry. Two really interesting qualifying sessions, one wet, one dry, both full of drama and incident, and a grid headed by the American driver Ugo Ugochukwu. The pit lane has just opened. The cars making their way out on circuit. David Addison and Alan Hyde are trackside, and both looking forward to what promises to be a really good race, because even though we've had 2 free practice and 2 qualifying, we haven't really got a proper pattern, have we, as to who is quick around here, because a rhythm has been hard to find for all the incidents.
We have not had a day so warm. 27 degrees the air temperature and well over 30 degrees the track temperature heading into our first race of the weekend for single-seaters. And yesterday in qualifying, it was all about patience and concentration, and that was exactly what Ugo Ugochukwu, one of the development drivers for McLaren, has been so for many years, was able to reign supreme. Pole position for the American, and we're about to see for the first time racing this weekend, and the first time really in perfect conditions. Nice, warm, sticky tarmac for brand new rubber, and we see them heading around the circuit to line up on the grid, and it will be the first time that we've seen this particular car racing around the streets of Macau.
And this particular type of car is the Tatuus F3T 318 chassis. They have 2-litre Alfa Romeo badge engines, the Autotecnica Motori engine. They'll do 0 to 100 in 3.3 seconds. They'll nudge up to 255 kilometres an hour. So these are still serious bits of kit. And around this 6.1 kilometre lap, 38 gear changes per lap. And we've also had drops of rain being reported at turn 21, and that's not far from where we are at the start and finish line. So a wet and dry circuit would be another curveball to throw at them, including at this man, Tuukka Taponen. You're riding on board with him to the grid. We rode on board with him yesterday, where at about this very corner, he suddenly understeered wide and went crank into the barrier.
And we weren't predicting really that we would have drops of rain ahead of our first single-seater race. We were just talking about the perfect conditions and the opportunity for slick tyres to be working around the circuit, and all of a sudden Macau offers another element of drama, as if with a circuit like this you didn't have enough drama just in having cars racing around a 6.1 kilometre circuit around the streets of Macau. Then all of a sudden we get the question mark over the weather.
The drivers are coming into the pit lane not because they have a problem, but because the regulations allow to come through the pit lane for 1 extra reconnaissance lap. And that means that all the officials that are standing there making sure the teams go the right way down the pit lane, the personnel now have to scatter out of the way themselves, because Oliver Goethe aboard number 1 is making his way through the pit lane. Tuukka Taponen likewise, just to get 1 more lap of knowledge of the circuit, just to get a little bit more warmth into the tyres. And it's also a psychological thing. They've not gone to the grid. Why? I better not go either. I'll follow suit, go down the pit lane. But it does have a benefit. It's just another lap, another bit of mileage around the circuit, because actually, despite the track time afforded to them, so many red flags have we had. Was it 8 in qualifying yesterday? 7 yesterday, and how many on Thursday?
5.
5, plus what happened in free practice. Therefore, it's been so bitty. Getting in mileage, getting in full laps, clear laps, has been very difficult indeed. And they also here can do a practice start look on the exit from the pit lane. It
was a testing day yesterday, not just for the single-seaters, but for everybody with the conditions, the way they were. For many, the first opportunity they had had to drive around the gears circuit in drier conditions. And in total, over all of the forms of racing that we had around Macau yesterday, we had 22 red flags. Yes, we went through and added them all up yesterday evening.
And also yesterday evening, while you were doing that, Rui Marquez, who is the race director, and Emanuele Pirro, who looks after the single-seater commission, got all the drivers together. And whatever is the next thing from the Riot Act, it was read to them about respecting the circuit and about respecting each other, because it was getting silly by the end of yesterday with so many stoppages.
It was so difficult for the drivers, those that stayed out of trouble and had to retain that psychological focus down in pit lane. for a very, very long time. And that was when Ugo Ugochukwu rather proved the fact that he had a bit of experience here at Macau, knew what the key was to unlocking it, to be ready to go and put in that killer lap when it was required, and he did exactly that.
The top speed of these cars, which is on the way down to Lisboa, 255 kilometres an hour, you're on full throttle for over 65% of the lap, which is quite something. It does show how fast the lap Macau is. They're all running on a sustainable fuel as well this year from ETS, and a 2:19 in the end was pole position yesterday, although estimated lap times were 2:14, so maybe drivers getting into a rhythm, and as a race car's fuel load comes down, we might be able to get better than 2:19. We shall see, because of course drivers and teams come here with limited experience and data of this particular chassis. Yeah, okay, it's a kind of Formula 3 style car, but they haven't got a Macau setup to just slap on and go racing. A number of the drivers are returning to Macau because either they haven't won it or they love it, or both. A number of drivers are new to Macau. A number of drivers are new to Macau and this car. The FR chassis that runs in Formula Regional events. There's one in America, there's Japan, there's Oceania, Europe, Middle East Championship at the start of the year. The Middle East champion is on this grid, Tuukka Taponen. This is a man returning, Dino Beganovic, who, if you think back 12 months, was very quick within the F3 Grand Prix, but crashed on his way to Lisboa in the main race, the Sunday Grand Prix itself. Made that move on the inside and then couldn't get the car slowed down. He was in the wars yesterday because, having gone fastest, he came round a corner and found an accident had happened right in front of him, blind right-hander. His teammate Alex Dunne had already hit the parked car of Rintaro Sato, and Beganovic ploughed into it as well. So his grid position doesn't really reflect the pace that he has got. He is 15th on the grid. Also thinking of the grid, James Wharton, who is 14th, got a 3-place grid drop last night because he was adjudged to have misjudged the speed of Jin Nakamura's car, got into the back of him, and then propelled Nakamura into the barriers down at Arbenne. So Wharton copped a 3-place grid drop as a consequence of that. And
Dino Beganovic is one of the drivers where you really do see at work the fact that being quick, having great racecraft around the streets of Macau, that's not enough. You also need a little dose of luck as well, and sometimes luck can play against you, as Beganovic realised yesterday. Let's see what today's race. It's quite a joy to be travelling on board around this second reconnaissance lap, second lap from pit lane, twisting around the barriers and the walls of the top part of the circuit, the tight and twisty section on the gear circuit here at Macau. The long right-hander, left-hander at Donna Maria leads up towards the no overtaking zone, the Melco hairpin. It's enough to get these cars threaded around the corner, let alone thinking about defending or attacking for a position in the race. And that is the reason why throughout the course of 4 days for the Macau Grand Prix, no overtaking at the Melco hairpin. It's not allowed. This is where the circuit opens up after the Melco hairpin, down through Black Sand on towards Fisherman's, and the final turn is Arbenne, and that's where they will see all of a sudden the grid already populated with the teams, and very soon with all of the representations of the sponsors and the local hotels in this region. And for many of these drivers, some as young as 16 years of age, they will have never known a race build-up quite like a build-up to a race at Macau. Today is the qualification race. Tomorrow, add an awful lot of ceremony in the run-up towards the start of the race.
It's looking rather dark overhead, dare I point out, as Dino Beganovic comes up to the grid. So this could be a very difficult time for the drivers and indeed race control, and it could be that out of 10 laps ahead of us, towards the end it starts to get a little bit inclement, and they're all on Pirelli slick tyres for the start of this race, with, as Alan has made the point, Ugo Ugochukwu on pole position, the McLaren junior driver.
Just seeing some of the teams looking up to the sky and holding the hand out as you do your own personal barometer for, is it raining? Is it not? Did I feel a spot of rain? And at this point, leading up to the start of the race, you almost have psychological rain. I'm sure I just felt rain. I'm sure I just felt drops.
Well, the teams will be ready with yet more wet tyres. Normally, they have a real panic about when to use the sets of slicks available to them, because you want to keep a set for this race and a fresh set, if you can, for the Grand Prix itself. They only have 4 sets of Pirelli slicks. Well, they barely scratched the surface of that. Only really 1 session, and that was Q2 yesterday. Have they had to think about them? The countdown here continues, and the 5-minute board is going to be imminent.
Yeah, the countdown to the qualification race is far shorter than the countdown tomorrow, because we will have ceremonial start to the race tomorrow, which is very traditional. Always brings a smile to the face, because it couldn't happen anywhere else but Macau before the Macau Grand Prix.
And it's something new for the drivers, you know, because many of them may have been racing at big events if they've been in a support category to a Grand Prix, let's say FIA Formula 3 or FIA F2. But to be out of the car, to stand for a group photograph with the dignitaries from Macau SAR before the race, that's quite something. And it's interesting to see how they cope with it, because some are quite happy to go through that. Others are all a bit nervy, a little bit uncomfortable, because they want to be in the car and thinking about the race.
I'm sure none of them have been involved in lining up on a grid alongside a massive chicken. And I've just seen a massive chicken making its way down the grid. I'm not sure it's the peacock that we saw earlier on, is it?
I can't see any chickens. You're just fantasising.
You wait.
No.
You wait.
Lights out of bed again. Matron. Definitely you. This is the man on pole, Ugo Ugochukwu. And also lining up at the front of the grid, a driver with experience. They were both in last year's F3 race. This is Oliver Goethe. Now, he's not a regular FR racer. He's been away in F3 and then stepping up to F2 at the end of the year. But he wants to crack Macau, and here he is. Different type of category for him, different chassis, different car, but he knows the circuit.
Had an unusual qualifying as well yesterday, because when the car came into the pit lane, the fire extinguisher was deployed by accident, and then the team had to work to clear up the inside of the car and fit a new extinguisher.
And somebody was posing a question to us on Twitter last night. Was it because he'd gone to the scrutineering patch and one of the scrutineers had done it? And Oliver Goethe said it was all down to him. He just sort of moved his hand at the wrong angle, the wrong time, and touched it. All down to him. He took full responsibility. You've seen Noel lining up 3rd. You've seen Enzo Danini 4th, and their 5th is Mari Boya, who was in FIA F3 this year, but did race in the FR Middle Eastern Championship at the start of the calendar year. Mari Boya driving like Noel for the KCMG IXO by Pinnacle Motorsport team, the Mexican and Spanish partnership. Some teams have got 3 drivers and some have got 2. And for Evans GP here is Cooper Webster, who is also an esports driver for the Oracle Red Bull racing team, former Carter, former BMX driver, and last year's Indian F4 champion, and has been racing in F4 in Australia this year, 7th in the title race. There's a big chicken there, or is that a peacock?
Looks like a chicken to me.
7th on the grid was Freddie Slater, the British driver, next to a chicken. And 8th is Théophile Nael. There he is in number 14, which is the Sansalot car. And Théophile Nael, last year's Spanish champion, 9th in FR in Europe this year. Evan Giltaire next on the grid, number 17, last year's French F4 champion, and a race winner, 7th in this year's Formula Regional European Series in the so-called FRECA Championship. There is number 26, which is Matteo De Palo, who had a tough day yesterday. Couldn't really unlock the pace out of that car, but De Palo has been racing in FR cars in Europe and the Middle East this season. And Rashid Al-Daheri here has been in F4, both in the UAE and Italy in the Euro 4 Championship. So he makes the step up to this car, even though he raced here last year. 3rd
in a Formula 4 piece of machinery. Let's see what they can do. He can do in an FR car.
Jin Nakamura's car repaired overnight after being Whartoned. He got fired into the barrier at the R Bend by slightly overzealous James Wharton. So Jin Nakamura then lining up 12th on the grid, and their 13th is the MP Motorsport car of Matteo Colnaghi, who has been the runner-up in the Spanish F4 Championship this year, so makes the step to these cars for the first time, and of course this track for the first time as well.
some really young drivers represented down on the grid from 16 years upwards. And if you think about a young driver on the start of their single-seater career, 16 years of age, to tame the gear circuit at Macau, that's something special. And of course, they have been around this circuit multiple times on simulators. There is nothing that compares to the bumps that you feel inside the cockpit of an FR car around Macau.
Dino Beganovic you're looking at, just for James Wharton, the runner-up in FR Europe. Dino Beganovic for the Ferrari Driver Academy, 6th in FIA Formula 3 this year with a couple of race wins. But in these sorts of cars 2 years ago, he was the European champion. So you know, he perhaps felt that last year's Grand Prix got away. He comes back, he steps down to a degree into Formula Regional machinery, to FR, but he wants to win. And that's true of lots and lots of drivers that come back, switch categories, go sideways because they want to race at Macau and they want to win at Macau.
Such a busy grid, isn't it, as the personnel are invited to make their way back into the paddock, and well, they'll be watching the race unfold over 10 laps around Macau. And you can see, as you look at the wide shot, of everybody leaving the grid apart from the few team members that are involved in the starting of the car, and the packed grandstands as well. I'm sure they will have one eye to the sky as we do. It's very, very hot. It's not quite as humid as it was yesterday, up to 98% humidity yesterday. We're down in the 80s today. It's jolly warm and there is a threatening sky.
So the grid is being cleared, and that means that when the personnel have gone, these cars, these drivers will be left on their own, with Ugo Ugochukwu on pole position and Oliver Goethe lining up second ahead of Noel and his teammate Enzo Deligny. It is Murray Boyer next ahead of Cooper Webster, then Freddie Slater and Théophile Nael. Evan Giltaire and Matteo De Palo come next from Rashid Al-Daheri and Jin Nakamura starting 12th ahead of Mattia Kolnagi, and then with his grid drop James Wharton, then Dino Beganovic, and the top 16 rounded out by Valerio Rinicella. Alexander Abkazova comes next ahead of Alex Dunne, who should be one to watch with pace, but he was unlucky to be involved in a crash yesterday. Came across a parked car, then Sota Agawa and Tuukka Taponen, who is a FR champion, but a long way back after crashing in qualifying yesterday himself. Tiago Rodrigues was here in F4 last year. Lou Rushi crashed on Thursday. He's ahead of Rikuto Kobayashi and Jet Bowling, who had a crash at the end of yesterday's session. Rintaro Sato, Kai Darianani and Kanato Lee round out the order, and that sky is not a nice car.
It's looking threatening, isn't it? Very threatening. It's been jolly windy over the past few days here at Macau as well. You can see the flags are just fluttering gently, so that's good news as far as the wind is concerned. But those little drops of rain that we were given notification on the timing screen just before the cars left pit lane, they are going to be in the back of their minds throughout this race.
And race control will be keeping an eye to this. They will be fully aware that everybody's on slick tyres, and they'll be fully aware that there's a tipping point between going slowly on a greasy track and it just being unsafe on a wet, and therefore they might have to intervene. So we will have the 1 minute board shown shortly. That's the point at which engines fire, the last engineers leave the grid and then make their way down the pit lane. After that, pretty much it is out of their hands unless we have an incident. Now, Ugo Ugochukwu there, the man on pole position, who was last year's Euro 4 champion, the sort of pan-European German-Italian F4 championship. And you see the McLaren logo on the side of the car, part of the junior programme. 11th in the FR European Championship this year for the Alpine-powered cars. It does kind of prove, doesn't it, on a shootout, on a playing field like this, which is such a great leveler, it doesn't really matter what your season's results are and what reputation you come with. It can be made or broken here in Macau.
It is a blank sheet of paper. It is a unique race and requires unique skills over the course of 4 days for the Macau Grand Prix. But you can absolutely bet, without a shadow of a doubt, that the motorsport eyes of the world are focusing on Macau this weekend. Whatever they're involved with, whatever the various personnel involved with motorsport are, if they are at a Grand Prix, a Formula 1 Grand Prix, if they're involved in touring cars, if they're involved in GT racing, they'll be watching these races.
Over the years, whether it has been from its early days in sports cars through Formula Atlantic to Formula 3 to Formula 4 and the FR chassis this year, it doesn't really matter what the category. To win here, to be on the podium here, is quite something. And every year, Reputations are made at Macau, heroes are found, and there'll be some more over the course of these 10 laps and tomorrow's Grand Prix itself, with the grid now just about clear. Looking down into the pit lane, nobody is yet fretting about getting a set of wet tyres on standby, so I think they're still fairly confident. But it might be a wet walk back to the Myriad hotels near the gear circuit. 1 minute board shown.
And it would be really good news if we can have a dry run for the qualification race. It will be the dress rehearsal for the Grand Prix tomorrow, and very soon the cars are going to be released on their formation lap here around the streets of Macau.
Lights go green, green flag shown, and 1 or 2 a little bit slow away there. So one side of the grid not getting away. That's behind Noel, isn't it? Now, if everybody goes past him, he'll have to start at the back, and there's another car behind. No, it's not Noel, it's Mari Boyer, forgive me, his teammate. So Mari Boyer has not got going, but others, I think, might have been caught up behind. Have they all got going behind on that row? Yes. If the last car passes Boyer before he moves, he should start at the back of the grid. It may be that he can't start at all and needs the marshals to push him off the grid. So there you go, all that hard work in qualifying, the importance of a good lap time, and it can all be thrown away if you can't get the car off the line. And if you stalled it, rather than it be a breakage, it's all on him.
A third row start all of a sudden becomes a back of the field start. If they can even get the car going, it might be some kind of technical problem with the car that has prevented the car from starting. It might just be that things didn't go according to plan inside the cockpit. This looks like some kind of technical issue with the car as the team rushes over to Mari Boyer's car. What a shame.
I think it's the sort of slave battery that they might be trying to take and fire up the car. The trouble is, when they've been hot and then they stall, it's not an instant restart. It's a good sort of half a minute plus, so it can, if you like, cool down and then go again. So it's fired up now, but Mari Boyer should, in theory, start at the back of the grid.
A potential promotion for Freddie Slater, who would have started just behind. He's got a blank bit of tarmac in front of him. Mari Boyer has got going now, which is good news. Needs to press on and catch up to the rest of the field, so that's good news that Mari Boyer's car has started, and one to watch during this race.
Not only that, but he's also got to press on to catch up with everybody else, because we don't want to be waiting for a long period of time before Mari Boyer arrives on the grid. So he will be pressing on, but hopefully the team will be on the radio to him, advising him of what the start process is for him. The former Spanish karting champion. He was for the Campos team in Formula 3 this year, 15th in the championship, but did race in FR machinery at the start of the season. 5th in last year's FR Middle East Championship as well. So he's one of those drivers that is very active during the winter, keeping his hand in. The FR Middle East Championship has been a popular one in recent seasons. The cars then now turn their way up through that long left of Donna Maria. Down they come now to the Melco hairpin, where there is a permanent yellow flag, no overtaking, and the reason for that is very easy to see. It is the tightest of tight corners, look, and so there is no way you could think about going side by side round the corner. And they trickle their way down the hill, still trying to get the warmth into these Pirelli tyres, and then they'll slot into place on the 1-by-1 staggered grid, pole position being on the outside line here. That's where this man, the very tall Ugo Ugochukwu, will start, with Oliver Goethe lining up with him, then Noel, then Enzo Dellini, and then a gap where the car of Mari Boyer should have been.
It's getting rather dark here at Macau. Just looking out to the grid spots just in front of the commentary box here as the cars weave on a dry circuit to get heat into slick racing tyres. I just wonder about this, you know, it has got a much darker in the last 10 minutes or so.
And let's have a look at the rear of the grid to see where Mari Boyer is. He's overtaking. And I'm not sure that's what he's meant to be doing. I would think a drive-through might be coming for Boyer here, because, as I said at the start, if you're overtaken by the very last car, you should start at the back, and race control will be looking at that, I'm sure. He's going to come to the pit lane.
Into pit lane.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll do the right thing that way.
Yeah.
So Boyer pits, and wanting to make sure he's at the pit exit line in plenty of time. So Boyer will start from pit lane, and that now means that we are awaiting the front of the grid. History is about to be made. It's only, in quotes, the qualifying race, but it is the first time an FR chassis has raced at Macau. So Mari Boyer comes down the pit lane, the rest of the pack into position. The last car, therefore, that we will await is that of Kanato Lee, and when he arrives into position, everybody else will be ready and waiting. The drivers will wait for the 5-second board and then for the lights to go red. When the lights are extinguished, the qualifying race for the FIA FR World Cup, the Macau Grand Prix, will be underway. Ugo Ugochukwu on pole position, Oliver Goethe with him at the front. Green flag at the back says we're ready to go. And 5 red lights are on now. When the lights go out, it is going to be blast off. And a good getaway by Ugochukwu. A good start by Leon as well as they make the run down towards Reservoir for the first time. Goethe up the inside, tries to squeeze alongside Ugochukwu for the race lead. He is alongside, and he's just possibly fractionally ahead as they come down towards Mandarin for the first time. Leon in 3rd place, looking to try to make a move. He's in the wheel tracks, in the tow. Goethe has got Delaney in the other Red Bull livery car right up behind him. Freddie Slater is in the mix. One wide, one in the wall. Yellows fly, car damage in the middle of the road. It has kicked off at turn 2, and we are going to have an interruption for sure. But who will the race leader be as they get to Lisboa? It is Ugo Ugochukwu. He breaks fractionally late, but he survives it. Goethe 2nd, and Leon is going to be 3rd.
The rest of them stream through Lisboa. It is Ugo Ugochukwu that has fended off the attentions of Oliver Goethe, and we have stricken cars that will need to be tended to. The course vehicles come into place. One driver out on the left-hand side of your picture. Identify those cars in a couple of moments. Meanwhile, we are with our race leader, who, despite having to battle very, very hard off the line with Oliver Goethe, who I thought for a moment had a nose in front, Ugochukwu got the better of Lisboa and is now able to pull out a bit of a gap over 2nd place Oliver Goethe.
We're awaiting news as to whether or not the race is going to have to be interrupted. At the moment, it's still green lights and green flags around the circuit. You saw 2 cars off, one rather broken and vacated by the driver, another one parked up against the wall as well, as Ugo Ugochukwu then tries to make good his escape over Oliver Goethe in 2nd place. In 3rd it is Noel Leon, and then Enzo Deligny back in 4th as they make their way up now towards Donna Maria for the first time. Good first lap this though, on cold tyres by Ugo Ugochukwu, and he is clear as we go. Safety car. The safety car will pick him up at the end of the opening lap of the race.
Yeah, as they thread their way around the no overtaking point on the circuit, around the very, very tight complete turn on themselves at the Melco hairpin, and then on the run down. Let's have a look back, in fact, at what happened after the start of the race, as we see Ugo Ugochukwu bringing the field into play.
So you can see in the background, one just loses traction, slides wide. It's already crippled as it comes across the road. And surprisingly, we didn't lose as many as we could have done. One car very, very, very fortunate to avoid all the mayhem.
Good job done on avoidance. It's very much the name of the game. Yeah, big bash there coming out of the very, very quick corner, and quite a bit of debris splattered onto the circuit as well. Let's have a look from Taponen's car.
So down towards Mandarin he goes, and bang, right ahead of him, and Taponen in the wall as well. So he got caught out, I think, by the pace of the car ahead. So that is one of the fancy drivers of the weekend. Tuukka Taponen out on the way down to Lisboa. Taponen has gone, and he's not the only one. We
were on board with Taponen yesterday when the wall was hit. We can do the same again today. So disappointing for a very, very quick driver. And Taponen, unfortunately, with yet more damage on that FR car. We're going to be busy once again overnight, are they not?
Yeah. I think the other one we lost, sorry to interrupt you, was Soto Ogawa. That's the other driver that's not, as far as I can work out, gone through the first sector. And the car's being told to keep in the middle of the road as they come through turn 2 to avoid all the debris and all the marshals and all the track work that is going on. So, big hit. Let's have another look. Leaders come through. You can see cold tyres on the limit. Ogawa ploughs into the wall. And Taponen, we didn't really see from that shot, but he was following the pace of the car ahead, and he ran wide as well. But that's a very broken FR chassis, that tattoo chassis of Ogawa. Here it is. Wait for the bang. Wallop. And in goes Taponen behind him. It's quite fortunate. More well wiped out on the inside of the road there. On board with Taponen. Let's listen in. sickening noise, isn't it? So as Taponen, I think, as I said earlier, was judging his pace against the car ahead, that was wrong. He was always going to be wrong. 2 gone. Turn 2.
And it happens in a split second. When you ride on board and you see it all unfold, you realise just how quickly the dream is over here at Macau.
So they will all slot in behind the safety car. These laps all count, of course, for the purposes of the Grand Prix. For the purposes of the qualifying race, they all count within the 10, so the race remains live, albeit under controlled conditions. And it's not so much clearing cars out of the way, that's easy. Hook, crane, move. It's getting all the liquid soaked up, isn't it, and any debris out of the way.
How quickly they are deployed into action, though. The marshals around the circuit, there'll be hundreds of them around the 6.1 kilometre gear circuit, and they know exactly what they need to do. They immediately go into action to get the circuit ready to get things back underway, and they are working away industriously, and the rest of the field are going to have to be thinking about keeping the heat in the tyres on the parts of the circuit that they are able to get a bit of heat weaved into the Pirelli rubber as they make their way around the final part of the tight and twisty section of the gear circuit here at Macau, under the control of the BMW safety car. Only 1 lap so far complete with the requirement of the safety car to be deployed. We just had the GT3 race, qualification race here at Macau, and it was a unique event, if you like, because with so many very big and powerful GT3 cars, we ran from lights to flag without interruption, which was just such a joy for the drivers and for the spectators as well, because they were able to get into a groove. But it's when you have a race which has interruptions, the ultimate concentration that the drivers have to maintain is really brought into test. It was tested yesterday in qualifying, and straight away in the qualification race it is brought into play once again.
There are more junior single-seater categories around these days, and at an equivalent level as well. So these drivers, as we've touched on, have been busy in the winter months racing in similar chassis. They have full-time summer programs as well. But you're starting with drivers, of course, at a much younger age. We often talk about 15, 16-year-olds or junior single-seater categories that there never were in the early days of a Formula 3 Grand Prix at Macau. So although the circuits remain the same and we're looking at cars of a comparable level, you're looking at drivers that, even though they have done a lot of racing, are a little bit younger than the grid would have been, let's say, 20, 25 years ago.
It's true, and if the budget allows, with racing the way it is globally nowadays, you see drivers in the seat of a race car every weekend. When you're going through the results of FR championships around the world, you can see that drivers have been competing in Asia, in Europe, and all around the world.
So we're still behind the safety car for one last look, I think, from the drivers at the incident zone, so they can just assess where the speedy dry might be, and then they'll be good to go pretty shortly. And we can have another look at the start. Good getaway by Ugochukwu, and Oliver Goethe did his level best to get up alongside him. Couldn't quite get his nose in front, could he, the other side of Mandarin. Almost a bit of wheel banging at the back, but Ugochukwu around the outside of Reservoir, then had the inside line for the next corner heading down towards Mandarin. Noel lay on in third. You also get an idea of just how bumpy the circuit is. It's wide, it's open, it's fast. In the background, there's the impact. The bodywork flies. The yellow flag, I think, was waving even before the car hit the wall. And that was Ogawa out of the race. The safety car will be in this lap, by the way. We'll go back racing this time. This is Dino Beganovic's view of the start here. Lights out, blast off, good launch. Slightly better than the car ahead of him, Mattia Colnaghi, so he closes up there on the Italian, gets up the inside as well, sits on the back of James Wharton as they turn their way through that left of Reservoir. So Beganovic has already gained 1 place. Foot absolutely nailed to the board at this point. As a lift, he ducks up the inside of Wharton there. That puts him on the inside for Lisboa, and it all gets a bit crowded ahead of him. Can't make a move there because there's traffic in the way. Now there's a corner coming up. See if you can spot it. Barrier to the right, barrier to the right, barrier to the right. There it is. And they all crowd and funnel their way through that right hand that almost comes up unexpected. You know it's there somewhere, but you just can't judge it because the barriers are so high and you sit so low in the car.
That's a great view of what a good start he got as well, but just no opportunities. The circuit didn't open up and present any more than one place to be made up after a very good start. This is on board with Alex Dunne, who was so very impressive here at Macau last year. He finished second, I think, in this race, the equivalent race last year in the qualification race.
And in fact, on the outside there, on the left, you just saw Ogawa come steaming up to try and go round him, and then the car got sideways, so he was probably having a bit of an optimistic go to get past Dunne and carried too much speed into the corner. Dunne on the inside, look, getting crowded up the curb as well, and just about makes it through.
That was a squeeze, wasn't it, on the run down towards Lisboa. And as I said earlier on, it's not just skill that you need at Macau, you also need a little sprinkling of luck as well.
The climb up San Francisco Hill, but to the outside. Now that's brave, having a go there, and has done it. He has, just about. He's got the inside line for the next corner. Fair play. Wow. Alex Dunne going ahead of Mathieu Colnaghi, and boy, did he deserve that.
That was a squeeze, wasn't it? And you had to maintain your line and your courage as well, and he did exactly that. Superb, absolutely superb.
So we're going to go racing this time, Alan. Ugo Ugochukwu, Oliver Goethe, Noel on your top three. And you saw off the standing start the importance of getting a good run all the way from the timing line to make the move, to be in the wheel tracks, to get a toe on the way to Lisboa. And it happened again here. But look, Ugochukwu has absolutely bolted coming out of Fisherman's, and that's bad news for Goethe.
Weaving the car so early and right up to the last minute as well, getting heat into the tyres. Ugo Ugochukwu gets the race back underway and carries across the line. The green flag waves, and already with a little bit of a gap over Oliver Goethe. So here we go, racing again around the streets of Macau. It's Ugo Ugochukwu that leads.
Black flag for Mari Boyer, so he is being black flagged from the race for what he did on the formation lap after he stalled it. So Mari Boyer's travails continue as Ugochukwu comes towards us. It's going to be on for third place, the battle, isn't it? Leon versus Delaney versus Freddie Slater, who was in the F4 race last year, but Goethe, using the toe a little bit, is catching up to the race leader as they drop down towards us. James Wharton is being given a 10-second stop-go penalty as well as the cars funnel their way there through Lisboa. So Ugochukwu leading Goethe, the gap down a little bit. You're on board with Dino Beganovic. That means you're 12th. Absolute best in the first sector. Beganovic hunting down Rashid Al-Daheri ahead of him.
Twisting their way through this very demanding up and down section, left and right, the barriers, the walls, everything you have to contend with on the gear circuit here at Macau. And they funnel through. The good news is that we seem to have got away without a problem after the restart. Ugo Ugochukwu, meanwhile, got the best of the starts.
He led over the line by nearly a full second, so Goethe had to try to claw back some of that with a toe in the first part of the lap. 5 sectors to this lap, but Ugochukwu getting away. Absolute best sector 2 and sector 3. So Goethe, Leon, tiny gap back to Delaney, Slater, and then Cooper Webster 6. That's the order.
Police and Moorish, tricky right-handers, one after another on this high section of the circuit. Onto the long left-hander at Donna Maria. Through they go, threading their way up towards the no overtaking point at the Melco hairpin. You can see the LED panel flashing green. After that point, yep, overtaking allowed once again. And a good exit from the Melco hairpin sets you up for a good run down towards the end of one lap and the start of the next. So many overtaking manoeuvres are started at the exit of the Melco hairpin.
Absolutely right, and a bit of tyre screen even as the drivers push on, coming out of Fisherman's down towards our bend. This is going to be the end of lap number 4, and we've had a change. In fact, 4-6 race, Théophile Nael getting himself up past Cooper Webster. Now, last time the lead gap was 9/10 of a second, Ugochukwu to Goethe. Ugochukwu has extended it to 1.3 with a new best lap of the race, so the American is looking very strong up front. Third is Leon. Fourth is Delaney, and then Freddie Slater in 5th place. But Ugochukwu now, I think, has just about broken Goethe, hasn't he? He's getting away, building that gap as they come through the right-hander of Mandarin. Slippery surface flag out in the background, and let's just see whether Slater can make a move against Deligny. Look back, red and white car Slater, there to the outside of the Red Bull liveried car of Enzo Deligny, who tries to cover off the inside line, and Slater not able to duck up the inside of him.
Slots in behind, around the right-hander at Lisboa they go. Very quickly they'll be to the bottom of San Francisco Hill. That's where they are now. Accelerating up the hill, you can see the undulation there. It's quite a climb, this, as they go up San Francisco Hill, and then they have to deal with the tight and twisty section of Maternity, the right-hander, the left-hander down at Teddy Yip with the wall on the left-hand side, and then into the change of direction, one after another of the Solitude S's.
Slater looking much quicker now than Deligny as he tries to find a way by. He's just trying to force a mistake out of the car ahead of him. But Ugo Ugochukwu, in the meantime, is continuing to build the gap, isn't he? Well, he was, although maybe on this lap in Sector 2, it has come down ever so slightly in Sector 1, just marginally quicker was Goethe, but then it's normality restored in Sector 3, because that is where Ugochukwu falls away. This is for second place. Goethe taking Noel with him, but they need to stop thinking about each other, really, and try and get onto the back of that car. If they can close on the run towards the end of the lap and therefore be able to challenge at the start of the next, it could be a whole different story.
I was thinking exactly that. Oliver Goethe has got a bit of a deficit to make up to Ugo Ugochukwu in the lead of the race, but also keep an eye to the mirrors as well, with Noel Leon right there in his wheel tracks, and in response to that, in Sector 4, Oliver Goethe has put in an overall best sector. So going quickest in Sector 4 is the second place car of Oliver Goethe. Let's see what the gap is going to be at the end of this lap between first and second. Ugo Ugochukwu had the fastest lap of the race. Will he do so again? It was a 2:21.7. Up towards the line comes the race leader, and what's the advantage going to be? It was 1.3 seconds between first and second. It's down to 0.7 of a second with a fastest lap for number one, second place, Oliver Goethe.
So that now puts him in a really good position to have a go on the run down towards Lisboa. He's got away from Noel Leon, so the gap second to third is extended. That means Goethe can concentrate on the attack, not the defence. Another little battle lower down. You can see there as Evan Giltaire comes up to have a go at Matteo De Paulo. That is for 8th and 9th, and a bit of a quiver under braking from Ugochukwu. Goethe right there behind him. Was that enough to force it wide? Slater goes deep into the corner as well. They're all braking later. That is Nael going straight on as well from 6th place. Cooper Webster goes back ahead of him. Another one up the escape road. This is Alex Dunne's view. Cars from the left, cars from the right. He's going to be able to hang on to one place just about, but it all got very busy ahead as Théophile Nael rejoined ahead of him. But did Ugochukwu go a little bit deep into Lisboa? The answer is no. He survived, he's still in the lead, although Goethe is still hunting him down.
The gap was brought down to 0.7 of a second. The escape road at Lisboa has been rather busy on this lap, has it not, as they get themselves back onto the circuit. And that was good anticipatory driving by Alex Dunne, with the car rejoining and just thinking, okay, we need to stay out of trouble. Let's not think about this too much. Let's just make sure we've got enough tarmac to ourselves.
But oddly, Ugochukwu has just vanished up the road now, having thought for a moment he might have gone a bit deep into turn 3, Lisboa. He's built the gap quite markedly, it seems, over the rest of the lap from Goethe. Still third is Leon, but Slater is up to 4th then, so he did get past Deligny out of shot. Deligny's down to 5th. So Slater is there in 3rd, and we've got a yellow flag still within turn 3, apparently. We saw one car rejoining, but timing screen still saying the yellow flag, driver trudging away. They'll try and unravel in a moment who it is as the cars come out of Malco now.
It gets darker and darker here at Macau. It's 4:10 in the afternoon. It's the qualification race for the Macau Grand Prix of 2024, and we get a safety car intervention for the second time in this qualification race.
And I think it might be Colnaghi that we have lost. So Mattia Colnaghi is off. I think I'm right in saying it's Colnaghi, but it's at Lisboa. And so our second safety car intervention of the race, and we are on lap number 6 here. So obviously the officials don't want too many laps under the safety car, but it is a long lap, so the race can be neutralised to get the car out of the way. I'm noticing umbrellas going up once more in the grandstand, and I'm noticing people thinking, maybe I might just go indoors now. So maybe the spots of rain are coming. You've been teeing them up. They might be on their way as the safety car awaits. So the race leaders in the background weaving around. To tell you what, on the restart, Oliver Goethe had better not fall for the same stunt, had he, and be caught napping like he was first time around. Let's ride with Alex Dunne down to Lisboa. We saw the end of Théophile Nael's dramas and how he pulled back out in front and how it all got very busy. But this is all the way from the start of the lap. So you're on board with Dunne. He's in the wheel tracks here, looking to try to get the run, get a tow past the old race control building, down through Mandarin to the outside line, edging closer to the traffic ahead. Hard on the brakes, his car quivers under braking now. Have a look at the escape road, because here comes Théophile Nael back in front of him, and cars have to scatter, and the one to the right was the one that had to just lift, and Dunne was able to nip round the outside. Tell you what, we've seen it twice in this race. If there's a more opportunistic driver than Alex Dunne, I've not found him yet.
Yeah, that was really, really good stuff on board with Alex Dunne. What a treat this was, as we saw Ugo Ugochukwu and Oliver Goethe going down into Lisboa and getting a real wiggle on it as well, turning into the right-hander.
Nael was nailed, wasn't he? He got hit by Cooper Webster. That's why he went up the escape road. Webster braked a fraction too late, got under the gearbox, and that's what dislodged Théophile Nael to send him up the escape road. And
just looking at the overview, we were on board with Alex Dunne on that very, very breathe-in moment down at Lisboa. That was something else.
Wipers are on the safety car.
Yeah.
So it is starting to spit with rain. The wipers are on the safety car now, and they're all on slick tyres, don't forget. So tiptoeing their way, I think it's the mountain section of the circuit, if you like, the back part that's got wet first, but there are more than just a few umbrellas in the grandstand. Those that have a brolly have got the brollies up. Those that haven't, they're heading for home. They're heading for sanctuary.
They've been giving out free ponchos. I hope they've got plenty in stock, because we now have a race suspension. With the rain coming down, we go into a red flag period, and it's properly wet now, I'm afraid, and therefore, safety being absolutely of paramount importance around the streets of Macau. The race is suspended, and slick tyres are potentially not going to be the order of the day. So they thread their way around, being very, very careful with a circuit which has been dry pretty much all day. And now with the ponchos and the umbrellas up, it's a rather testing situation for the drivers and for the teams as well. But I hate to tell you, I told you so, it has been getting progressively darker since the cars formed up on the grid, and with that notification which came when the cars were released from pit lane that we had maybe a couple of drops of rain in the air, I think this was always going to happen.
You might think to yourself, well, it's not that wet, and surely it's up to the driver to decide if he wants to tiptoe round and think it's a passing shower or come in for wets. Well, yeah, that's one side of the coin, but this is a circuit like no other. It's fast, and it's, as we've seen over the weekend, got plenty of parts of it that can really bite. So when you're talking about really young drivers, it doesn't probably make sense to take that decision away, as in, look, we're going to neutralise the race, you'll all go into the pit lane. Now, at this point, if you want to change, you can, but we're at least going to give you the chance. That's, I think, the rationale behind it.
You can't take the risk, can you? We've talked about these young drivers. So many of them have never experienced the gear circuit at Macau. We have seen so many times, not just this year, but over pretty much every year of the Macau Grand Prix, the gear circuit here at Macau can bite. And in these conditions, it can bite really hard indeed. So with 4 laps to go in this qualification race for the FR cars, decision taken, neutralise the race, suspend the race, and give the option to change onto a different tyre. We don't know how wet it is around the circuit. We can certainly look in real life, in real time, out of the commentary box window and see everyone in hospitality just below us in the grandstand with umbrellas up.
In the pit lane, mechanics don't look overly concerned. They are languidly getting parts ready, but they're not rushing in and out of garages as though they want to shelter from the rain. So there is rain in the air, but I don't think it's hit this part of the circuit quite as much as it had around the rear of the circuit, up on the run from San Francisco Hill, for example.
It's been a very hot and humid day. They're probably welcome of being cooled down a little bit in pit lane, because it has been a very, very warm day indeed.
The interest now is going to be exactly what level of rain we get around the circuit, because it could be that by the time they bolted wets on, it's passed, and actually you could have got away with slicks anyway, or some people may elect to stay on slicks. The driver will have an idea of what it was like up the back part of the circuit. They've all got an idea of what it's like here, but that to me looks like a dry pit lane.
It does, and then we look out of the window and the tarmac is 2 different colours outside the commentary box on the start-finish line. It is 2 different colours of tarmac, but certainly close to the pit wall, it does look greasy. It does look like it's got a bit of a sheen on it as you look out of the window. So now a choice is about to be made down in pit lane. Tyres are being brought out, they are just being laid next to the cars, and no decision ultimately being made at this stage down in pit lane. But one thing is for sure, those dry weather tyres are losing temperature. They will lose temperature very quickly as they sit motionless down in pit lane. Umbrellas, teams, that's the order of the day as the cars arrive, and a little bit of time is required to make a decision. What do we do?
Well, having just been outside, the race is going to resume in 10 minutes. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lightest and 10 being the most, I would say half. It's a few almost inconsequential spots. Heavy spots, but spots. Not saying it's not worse around the back of the circuit, but honestly, if you're sitting in the pit lane now, you'd be hard-pressed to think, yeah, I've got to go wet.
The point I was just highlighting really is that immediately the cars come to a stop, those sticky Pirellis start losing temperature, and they will do so very quickly as well.
So it's a bit wet down through Lisboa and San Francisco, that section of the circuit. That is wet down at Lisboa. Now that, I can offer you this via Strava. That's about 2 kilometres away from where we are, Alan. If that. So it shows you how patchy the rain is, doesn't it? It's almost dry here. The chap in front of me just put his umbrella away. So it's wet down at Lisboa, and we certainly saw it wet up the hill. What do you do? On a circuit like this, you don't want to put yourself in the wall, do you?
On the run down towards Lisboa, that looked really greasy, really slippery. Coming up San Francisco Hill as well. That's not nice.
No, but
on a slick tyre, not nice.
The bigger problem is, where you want to slick, the bigger problem is going to be braking for Lisboa. Because up the hill there, you can just defend. People aren't really going to try and get past you. You might be able to tiptoe up the hill, and then the lap improves. But it's going from a high speed on a slick into that wet zone at Lisboa that will be the big problem. The rest of the lap you could probably get away with, probably.
They have a few minutes to decide exactly what to do, and for the first time now we see decisions being made. So a change of tyres for Noel, and they would have potentially, they've got a big screen down in pit lane, so they would have got a chance to see our camera angles around the circuit of just how wet it was going into Lisboa.
And they've all been told wet tyres are mandatory. You're not having a choice, we want you all on wet. We're not having a situation, think race control, where you heroes on slicks put it in the wall and we have yet more accidents. You're going on wet, come what may. I think they'll struggle to, well, they're only going to have 3 laps, aren't they? 2 laps maybe. If it were much longer than that, they'd probably overheat quite markedly. But for the sake of a safety car lap and maybe 2 racing laps, go on wet, you'll be fine.
Yeah, the safest option really, and having seen the level of slipperiness on the run down towards Lisboa, potentially that's a very, very safe idea coming from race control. Put the treaded tyres on and send them out for the conclusion of this qualification race. The heroes are going to be potentially made tomorrow for the Macau Grand Prix. Heroes won't necessarily be made in the qualification race. However, you could spoil every chance you've got in the qualification race today. So let's put the treaded tyres on. I didn't have this in the potential notebook for this afternoon to have rain at the end of the day. The motorcycles turned their first wheels this morning here at Macau. They dealt with a drying circuit. It was just a little bit damp when they went out for pre-practice first thing this morning. They had back-to-back free practice and qualifying, and they were able to complete their qualifying session in the dry. So for the first time today now, we have rain around the streets of Macau.
And for them, better it happens now than in 12 hours' time. So at least, hopefully, if it does pass through, the track will dry. So everybody being given the instruction to go onto wets. No argument about that. The drivers, in some cases, just out of the car, stretching their legs a little bit. So race control, the race director Rui Marquez, Jeanette Tam, his deputy, electing to tell everybody well, they need to be on wet tyres. Race order then, Ugo Ugochukwu ahead of Oliver Goethe, and then Noel, Freddie Slater up to 4th, just before the interruption ahead of Enzo Dellini, Cooper Webster 6th, ahead of Matteo De Paolo, James Wharton 8th. Now Wharton had a stop-go, which I don't think he's done. Rashid Al-Daheri 9th, and Evan Giltaire rounding out the top 10. Dino Beganovic 11th, Théophile Nael 12th, Alexander Dunne, Alex Dunne 13th, Jin Nakamura 14th, Valerio Rinicella is in 15th place. My suggestion would be we'll be out of the pits and 1 lap behind the safety car, and I hope it's only 1 lap, because otherwise we're going to have very little racing other than maybe the last lap of the race.
This qualification race day here at Macau, this is the final on-track action of the day. We get things underway a little earlier than previously planned. There is a revised, on the Macau GP website, there is a revised timetable for tomorrow, because unusually we have the Motorcycle Grand Prix first thing tomorrow morning, warm-up and bikes racing out for the coveted title of winner of the Macau Grand Prix first thing this morning, and then all four-wheeled action for the rest of tomorrow. For now, this is the final on-track action of the day.
Drivers getting back on board, so Alex Dunne will clamber back on board the car and see what he can do for the resumption of the race then. So the race is suspended, to use the word rather than stopped. They'll carry on in the same order. Right, so effectively what we have is what you would under the safety car, just not going round and round in circles all the time. But the one difference is that you're being allowed to change tyres, indeed commanded to change tyres.
So pretty quick getting ready for back in the cockpit for Alex Dunne. This looks like quite a hasty process.
Yeah, make sure everything's right. His father Noel Dunne, Formula Ford racer and champion. Alex slots the crash helmet back on. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you make the point that some of them almost look to be in a bit of a rush, bit of a hurry doing this. It kind of surprised they all jumped out of the cars, because it was never going to be a very long stoppage, was it?
No, I would agree with that, and this does look quite pacey. Normally they give themselves loads of time to get in the cockpit, get ready, get comfortable, get themselves in the zone. Single-seater drivers, young single-seater drivers, do that more than anyone else in racing. I can chat to touring car drivers right the way up until the 3-minute board down on the grid, and so too with GT drivers. Try and have a conversation with a single-seater driver within 10 minutes of the start of the race, and they just look beyond you. They they are in the zone. They are visualising. They've been taught to do it, visualising the start of the race, and getting a conversation out of them to break that concentration is very nearly impossible. So this...
But it's not a cultural thing, is it, in terms of the race culture? Touring cars, GT, being interviewed on the grid is quite something, but it's not a thing in junior single-seater ranks, really, so they're not used to it. They're not expecting it as much as anything. You're right, I mean, they are in the zone, but it's not something they ever have to expect.
I've tried it. I don't like being turned down, to be honest.
That is horrible.
Boy, oh boy.
And I would rather suspect that's coming our way. So if it's coming from... It hasn't passed over our head, so it must be coming from the other direction towards us, and that's the way we walk at the end of the day back to hotels. So the fans at Lisboa, bedraggled, and maybe it's going to be more than one safety car lap after all, just to let them get used to the conditions. So it would be one of those quirks of irony, wouldn't it, if we end up with the entire remainder of the race behind the safety car to the checkered flag, but let's hope it's not that case.
That could potentially be an option, you know, as the rain comes down ever heavier. That looks like a very, very difficult run. At least they are on the right tyres. Really good calls from race control as well. And you would imagine that they have access to the most advanced weather forecasting and radar signals of what's on its way here to the gear circuit at Macau. But with hindsight, really good call to make it mandatory to bolt on those brand new wet tyres.
But it does seem as though there's only that one sort of loop of the circuit, Lisboa, and if you sort of cut a section off the track, that's the wet bit and the rest is dry. So it's going to be interesting to see when we do go behind the safety car on the outlap exactly where else is wet and to what degree. Pretty
critical part of the circuit as well. It is the iconic overtaking position on the gear circuit of Macau. And very, very wet indeed, which they will discover when they are sent out from pit lane. Let's have a look at how the circuit is. So through Mandarin and on the run down towards Lisboa, it starts to get wet. And that is a very quick part of the circuit. They're about to find out just how wet it is. Fortunately, they have the right tyres for that part of the circuit, because that is quite a test.
That is serious rain, isn't it, heading down to Lisboa now? But here, it's barely doing anything. There are some umbrellas up, but yeah, that is heading our way. So it is going to be a very wet track before much longer. Right then. This wasn't in the plan, was it?
30 seconds until they are released behind the safety car from pit lane. Ugo Ugochukwu has done everything absolutely right so far. Now we have an extra element thrown in to the mix of the qualification race for the Macau Grand Prix. It's wet, it's dry, it's greasy, it's everything. No pressure there then.
But that pressure is diminished to a degree as long as you're behind the safety car. So Ugochukwu is probably quite happy just to follow that round for the remainder of the race. We go back to the safety car then as the race resumes. So safety car for an indeterminate number of laps. We have done 7, 3 laps to go. Please, let's not have 3 safety car laps and then a token finish to the checkered flag, because we do want to see some racing, don't we?
We would love to, and I'm sure the drivers would love to as well. This opportunity to race a powerful single-seater around the iconic streets of Macau is a gift for a driver. Dry here behind the BMW safety car as they weave those brand new Pirelli wets up to some kind of temperature for the first time, and then
look at that.
You go round the corner and the windscreen wipers, they're going to go on full mode, aren't they, very soon, because that is very wet indeed. There are cars down there, they are FR cars, but they are in a ball of spray. As you can see the view from the cockpit of Dino Beganovic's car, that is very, very wet indeed. And as they go into Lisboa, into the right-hander, well, they have the right tyres for the job.
They do, and there's a lot of rain there, admittedly, but it is one section of the circuit, and are we getting to a point in motorsport where we're saying we can't ever run in the rain? Let's hope not. Yeah, I know there's a lot of rain there. Of course, you're also not dealing with a regular track surface, you're dealing with public roads, so there are different types of tarmac there and different ages of the tarmac, which might also trick the situation. Yeah, it's slippery, but look at this up the hill. That's fine, bone dry. So like I say, you sort of cut that one loop off the circuit and the rest is okay. Or okayer.
Yeah, a little bit more okay. Still slippery, but as they twist their way up through the section, the tight and demanding section of the gear circuit here at Macau behind the safety car, they get to find that out firsthand now, and this is going to be a real test of these young drivers' skills, what to do and where to do it. But on the run down towards Lisboa from the very, very fast Mandarin, it is fully wet, very, very wet indeed. Once again, this view from Dino's car, and just working out where you can put the power down. And as you get higher and higher on the gear circuit at Macau, well, that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah. So here, it looks absolutely fine. So it may well be that, as I say, the rain is heading back towards the start line rather than just staying down at Lisboa, but we will wait and see what the race director elects to do. No sign yet the safety car will be in this time, but they're coming up towards Moorish. So this is lap 8 out of 10, remember.
Ugochukwu is making the most of every single opportunity to just get 1 or 2 weaves of the car to try and get those tyres up to an operating temperature, and that is experience that's coming into play for Ugochukwu, because of that section, the section of the circuit they've just been on, there is barely room to move the car from side to side to get heat into the tyres, but Ugochukwu making the most of every little tiny opportunity to do that.
So the safety car coming down through the Melco hairpin through Black Sands. Maybe race control would like it to go through once more. So at best, we're going to get 1 racing lap, at best. Because they're on lap 8, they're about to start lap 9. So 1 racing lap, seemingly, as the lights stay on top of the safety car. The race control officials will be in contact with Pedro Cochero and his observer, who are in the safety car, saying what's it like, and he'll say, well, it's really bad down at Lisboa, but it's all right the rest of the lap. So they'll give them maybe one more chance to have a look at it, see what it's like, and just get a feel for it at a slower pace before they are released back to racing. But the lights are staying on top of the safety car.
Yep, so another lap behind the BMW, and it is quite bizarre, the conditions around this circuit. Look down to the grid hatchings as they go on to lap number 9. 8 laps will go in the book now for Ugo Ugochukwu behind the safety car. And you see Oliver Goethe in the background making the most of this drier part of the circuit to try and get the tyres up to temperature. Well, they are coming down towards the one little section of the circuit which is really, really properly wet.
But is it as wet this lap as it was a lap ago? Well, we'll find out, won't we, in a moment, because as they come through, it doesn't look as bad, but in fairness, it looks worse with the spray. It doesn't look as though it's raining quite so heavily, but it just looks worse because the cars kick up the standing water, and that part of the circuit's not draining. That's the problem. But it's, yeah, there's no denying it's wet, but a lot of that's the spray rather than the rain.
And one thing you do have to do with wet tyres on a dry circuit, and quite a lot of this circuit does look to be pretty dry, is cool the tyres down. So it's a peculiar thing. This is the water that will cool the tyres if they are a little bit over warm when they're in race conditions. So a small opportunity to cool an overheating wet tyre. Hopefully they won't get the chance to do it over just one lap. Pretty sure they will be racing at the end of this one. They've had 2 acclimatisation laps, haven't they, behind the safety car?
Yes, because you think, well, if we were always going to run the rest of the race behind the safety car, why waste the set of wets? Why add to the cost for the teams? Why go back out? Why not just call it? But because we could see how wet it was on the cameras. Anyway, fingers crossed.
It's wet up here as well, isn't it?
It's greasy. Yeah, it's damp. But
I think it's wetter than it was the previous lap.
Maybe, you're right. Yeah. Drivers then with the Pirelli wets, jinking around, keeping the warmth in them. But the safety car brings them through to the end of lap number 9. And hopefully, one more lap. My fear is they will carry on behind the safety car. It will peel in at the end of the last lap, and we'll have that token run to the checkered flag for all the cameras. But we do want a racing lap.
I think you might be right. We shall wait and see what instruction comes from race control thus far. And with the advantage of a little bit of hindsight, I think really good decisions have been made by race control in the run-up towards the restart of this race to choose essentially for the teams and for the drivers what tyre they will be on for the conditions. Well, I would hate to see them all barreling down into Lisboa on a slick racing tyre with the amount of water that's down there. That would not end well. So a wet tyre is the order of the day, under the control of the BMW safety car up towards the Melco hairpin, which from here looking down looks absolutely dry, doesn't it?
I think if the safety car were coming in, we would have been told by now.
I think you might be right.
So it looks as though we are going to run to the end under the safety car, which makes one wonder why the cars were released, unless it's come as a bit more of a surprise that it was quite so bad. So the safety car comes now through Fisherman's.
And also, as you quite rightly said, race control in touch with the huge experience inside the BMW safety car, and they're feeding back exactly what it's like to be driving. It's one thing to be looking at what the tarmac looks like on the television screens, but when you're behind the wheel of a car, then you've got a much, much better idea.
So on to the last lap. Still behind the safety car. So we have the result, unless anybody crashes on the last corner when the safety car, as I suspect it might do, peels in and they run to the checkered flag. It looks better for television, for cameras, for marketing to have a checkered flag waving than a red, doesn't it? So that largely seems to be why these things happen. But to go out and do 3 laps behind the safety car does seem to be a rather curious way of finishing the race.
Teams watch on the pictures and the data that they get down in pit lane, and as we follow the cars around this final lap for the qualification race for the Macau Grand Prix, first time we've got the FR cars here at Macau, and they finished the qualification race in an unusual way. But this Macau Grand Prix weekend this year for 2024 has been unusual. It's been a very unusual collection of days of weather and challenges that they have had out on the circuit. Been coming here for 12 years now, and I've not remembered rain over a prolonged period. It's certainly not been under the worry of very, very strong winds coming to Macau as well.
I would certainly say that there is less water on the road than there was when the cars were released. The first lap through there was a lot of water sloshing around. Yeah. It's a shame in a way that we couldn't have held on for half an hour. I know you didn't want to be watching cars in the pit lane for half an hour, but it would have eased perhaps, and water dissipated to a point where it was runnable. But anyway, we are where we are. The race control team have made the decision, and so Ugo Ugochukwu is the winner of the FIA FR World Cup qualifying race, notionally, because he will bring them round at the end of this lap. And the safety car may well peel in. There'll be a checkered flag, but you've got a result.
And Ugo Ugochukwu has driven an exceptional race. Let's discount what has happened since the weather changed. He was doing everything he needed to do, controlling that gap over Oliver Goethe in second position. And as we watched the BMW leading Ugo around, he was really impressive in a very difficult qualifying session yesterday, keeping his head, working out exactly what he had to do, when he had to do it. He delivered yesterday in qualifying, and in the race today, he is delivering once again. Albeit the checker flag will come out in the order we see them heading through now. Police up towards Moorish, and the continued run towards the top part of the circuit. But Ugo has done absolutely everything that he has been required to do. Super work by Ugo Ugochukwu, the driver that is involved, has been involved for some years now with the McLaren Driver Development Programme, still only 17 years of age, from New York in the US, and with the support of McLaren, looking after his, so far, very impressive single-seater career.
So Ugo Ugochukwu then taking a race win in a much interrupted race. What did we end up with? 2 safety cars, and then the red flag, and then a 3rd safety car for the restart to the end. And I'll tell you what, if you have the contract to supply the safety car, you're almost guaranteed a lot of airtime, aren't you? Because that has been very busy today.
And it has done a super job of bringing back information to race control about conditions out on the circuit, as Ugo Ugochukwu bunches the field up and comes up towards the conclusion of the final lap of the qualification race behind the control of the BMW safety car. The wipers going very quickly indeed on that BMW, as it will peel off and allow the drivers to take the checkered flag for 10 laps complete in the qualification race from the FIA FR World Cup and Macau Grand Prix.
Ugo Ugochukwu then, from Oliver Goethe and Noel, will be the top 3 as they make the run up towards the checkered flag, and Ugochukwu coasts across the line, doesn't have to accelerate because nobody can overtake him, and there is your ceremonial finish to the qualifying race. Some drivers were weaving around, getting warmth into the tyres, thinking they were going to go racing, but it was never going to be. That is the checkered flag to complete the qualifying race. That is the grid for the main race, barring any penalties that are lurking in the system. And for the RHGP team, Ugo Ugochukwu then the race winner. So he was able to control the first restart by charging ahead of the opposition, and that one was able to just coast up to the line. But equally, he knew that nobody could ever make a move against him. But he didn't have to accelerate, he didn't have to stress the car, he could just take his time and bring the cars through safe and sound.
He did everything right yesterday in qualifying. He's done everything right today in the qualification race. And Ugo Ugochukwu takes the first little bits of Macau history, puts himself down as a winner around the streets of Macau, albeit not yet a Grand Prix winner, but he is a race winner around the streets of Macau. The very unusual streets of Macau, part wet, part dry. But with racing now complete what weather will we have tomorrow is what we begin to start to think about here, because normally it's a foregone conclusion that we will have hot, warm, dry, sticky conditions at Macau. This year, in 2024, it has been a completely unpredictable turn of events for the weather. But Ugo Ugochukwu takes his little bits of Macau history.
And in fairness to him, I know he didn't have to do all that many racing laps, but he didn't make a mistake, did he? He knew what he had to do and when he had to do it, and so Ugochukwu, coping with everything that was thrown at him, a very impressive safety car restart for the actual racing bit. Ignore the ceremonial finish, but by dropping back and then accelerating very, very early, he was able to catch Oliver Goethe slightly napping, and that meant that he deprived Goethe of that chance of being able to attack on the way down to Lisboa, which is the one key section of the lap, as we saw on the first lap of the race, where you can make a move. So he'll be well pleased with that. Last year, okay, new to the circuit, new to the type of car that we had for the Grand Prix last year, didn't really sparkle. So much of that, though, was down to what happened in qualifying, which, as we had been talking about yesterday, was a lottery in itself. That was really hard work yesterday. They dealt with so many interruptions, but when required to do so, they had to turn it on. And Ugo Ugochukwu did so almost at the switch of a button, and he has provided exactly the same professionalism today, and it has paid off. A race winner at Macau, heads the field down from the Melco hairpin, down through Black Sands. This is the driest part of the circuit, and runs down towards the entry to pit lane at the end of this slow-down lap. And the marshals have all worked very hard over the course of 3 days here at Macau, and no doubt they will have a busy day tomorrow, racing all the way from first thing. We get the added bonus of seeing motorcycles compete for the Macau Grand Prix on race day here at Macau tomorrow. Which is something unusual, isn't it? So that's good to see. Let's hope we don't have any more overnight rain, because it's, as you say, very odd that we've had so much in the last few days. It's thrown the timetable up in smoke. It's probably giving people quite a lot of food for thought for next year as well, in terms of the content, the timetable, and how you structure it all, because you always learn lessons at Macau. You always find new things that crop up to test you, and that will be, I'm sure, discussed by the Macau Grand Prix committee as well. Into pit lane they come. The top three are funneled off to the right-hand side and will head over towards the Parc Fermé area, and then we have the build-up towards the podium presentation for our qualification race, with garlands and trophies to be presented, and Ugo Ugochukwu can tick off one of 3 boxes for the weekend: pole for qualifying and qualifying race, top step of the podium. Top 3 head into Parc Fermé, and we'll see in a moment the very, very tall American driver getting out of the race-winning car. And there is the very dry final part of the circuit. Odd, isn't it? Because we were initially told spots of rain at turn 21, so towards the end of the lap, but it was all down at turn 3, Lisboa, where it hit. Ugo Ugochukwu, the winner, from Oliver Goethe and Noel. 4th to Freddie Slater from Enzo Deligny and Cooper Webster. Matteo De Palo 7th. James Wharton 8th. Now, I don't think he ever did his stop-go penalty, so that's probably up for discussion. Rashid Daheri 9th and Evan Giltaire in 10th. Then Dino Beganovic in 11th from Théophile Nael, Alex Dunne, Jin Nakamura, and in 15th place, Valerio Rinicella. After him, there was Rintaro Sato and Tiago Rodrigues. And you can see that long line of people that didn't make the end of the race. Alexander Abkhazova being the driver who came last across the line. So, the pit straight at Macau is quiet and will be so for about an hour and 10 minutes before the traffic starts to flow once more. And there is Ugo Ugochukwu's car, and the very tall American driver will be a delighted race winner, no doubt about it. Puts him in pole position for the main race tomorrow, and it also means that he will know how to control the start. But I think Oliver Goethe will be even more feisty when we go to the green light tomorrow when we get the race underway. So the dignitaries for the podium will be making their way towards it. The drivers will be making their way from the Parc Fermé scrutineering area, through the paddock, up to the podium. Photographers assemble on the photographer's gantry at the foot of the podium, just next to that circular race control building. Podium just hidden behind it, and the podium at the moment has the backdrop of the television, which is then going to be made into the podium backdrop very shortly. Happy teams down in the pit lane, the R8 GP team. Good track record in junior single-seater racing over many, many years, and all smiles once again. So for Oliver Goethe, a bit of frustration, I suspect, there, that he wasn't really given another chance to go racing. Goethe was good on Thursday. Actually, quite a lot of what happened on Thursday in terms of times and the order was when you were in the pit lane, because so few laps did you get. If you were first out, you had a better chance of getting up the order. So as we wait for the drivers to get to the podium, let's have a quick break and look at the highlights of the qualifying race for the 71st Macau Grand Prix. So the backdrop for the podium has now been made ready. That was the giant television screen a moment ago for the fans in the grandstand. And I think we're ready with the drivers and our dignitaries to go to the podium itself.
Of the Macau Grand Prix FIA World Cup qualifying race. First of all, let's welcome the winner drivers to the podium. On second runner-up, number 7, Noel Leon from Mexico. On first runner-up, number 1, Oliver Goethe from Germany. And the winner is number 4, Ugo Ugochukwu from the USA. Congratulations. And now, I would like to invite Mr. Luis Gomes, President of Sports Bureau and Coordinator of the Macau Grand Prix Organizing Committee, to present the laurel to the winner drivers. So to our second runner-up, congratulations to Noel. And to our first runner-up, Oliver. And of course, to the winner, Ugo from the USA. Thank you, Mr. Gomes. And now, I would like to invite Mr. Ko Hai-in, President of the Legislative Assembly, to present the trophy to the 3 winner drivers as well. And now, to our second runner-up, number 7, Noel Leon from Mexico. And our first runner-up, Oliver Goethe from Germany. Congratulations. And of course, to the winner, Ugo Ugochukwu from the USA. Thank you. And I would like to invite back Mr. Gomes. Please remain at the center for a group photo. Please look to the center front at the camera at the front, at the media zone as well. Let us capture your spectacular moments. Congratulations to the winning drivers. Thank you very much. Will other drivers please remain on stage on the podium? Please remain at your current position. Thank you, our presenter. Please remain at your current position. And now I would like to invite Chris to have a quick interview with the drivers, please.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Noel. Noel, well done. Just when we thought the rain had stopped, that was crazy, wasn't it? What was it like out there? I know you were only behind the safety car, but it seemed to be dry here, really wet over there, dry and damp in the middle.
Yeah, of course it was really tricky, especially when we arrived lap 5 or 6 something with the slicks and it was done. It was really scary, but yeah. Good decision right
Really good spot as well. You had to work on the first 2-3 corners to stay there. Droppers queuing up behind you. You dug deep.
Yeah, it was close to almost done my race at the beginning. They hit me in turn 3. But yeah, we have a good car and tomorrow we just need to pass the first lap and then we can drive from there.
Well done, congratulations. Let's hop over to Oliver. Oliver, well done. You got a bit overshadowed yesterday, that qualifying session with all the red flags, but it was so close between you and Ugo, 14 thousandths of a second, and you've been so close today again. So we're in for a good race tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a very close battle from qualifying. Qualifying was really, really tight throughout the whole session, especially at the end. Also, the start was very close here, and at one point I got really close when it started to rain, but yeah, it was a bit risky on the braking. We didn't know it had rained that much throughout the lap, so yeah, it was a bit on the limit there, and from then on it was just red flag and safety car. So there's still the race tomorrow, the big one, so yeah, I'm going to give it my all and try to get that win.
And how useful is the experience from last year being this year with all these changing conditions?
Yeah, I mean, the experience is definitely useful, having driven the track last year. I haven't driven in these conditions, though, in the wet and in mixed conditions. None of us have, so that's definitely tricky for us, especially because it's a different car. But yeah, I mean, we've adapted well, and yeah, it's definitely a good battle now.
It will be good. Good luck tomorrow. Ugo, well done to you. You have had to deal with all sorts this weekend with the weather and stoppages. How hard has it been to stay focused and concentrated with everything that's been going on?
Yeah, it was really tricky with the rain that started to fall in Sector 1 and 2. I had quite a big gap, so I was just trying to manage it as well as possible and yeah, take no risk through that section. But yeah, really happy to bring it home. The car was working really well. Big thanks to the whole R-Race team. And yeah, it puts us in a really good position for tomorrow's race. And yeah, we keep pushing.
But you were quite pleased that there was no restart and the safety car stayed out.
Yeah, it was quite tricky conditions. As I said, especially in T3, it was really wet. Being in the lead, I had the least spray. So, but yeah, no restart, so it made my life a bit easy. And yeah, as I said, it puts us in a nice place tomorrow. Feeling confident. As I said, car was really good today. And yeah, looking forward to tomorrow's race already.
Well done today. Good luck tomorrow. Your race winner, Ugo Ugochukwu.
Congratulations. Thank you, Chris. Congratulations to all the drivers. Thank you very much. One more photo on the podium. And congratulations again to all the drivers and riders today. And we do look forward to amazing races tomorrow. And good luck to all the drivers and riders tomorrow. See you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
So the third of the 4 days of the 71st Macau Grand Prix comes to an end, and tomorrow is going to be an important day because we have the Motorcycle Grand Prix, we have the championship deciding round of the Kumho FIA TCR World Tour, we have the Macau SAR Establishment Cup for the local drivers in road sports and in GT4, and of course the FIA GT World Cup and the Macau Grand Prix. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.